Xpand. Ladies and gentlemen, would you please welcome creator and organizer of Xpand, Mr. Kim Lee.
Hey guys, thank you all for coming out. My name's Kim, as you can see. I'm glad you guys all joined us tonight for this first ever Xpand event. So my history, just so you understand real quickly, I've been working in the CGI industry for 20 years, something like that, and it's really depressing to think about that, but I've been doing this for a long time, in everything from commercials to doing architectural stuff to doing visual effects and all over the place. Now, how many of you guys here are planning to work in entertainment by a show of hands? Because I'm assuming some of you guys are students, and okay, and some of you guys are not. And anybody here interested in the engineering side of things? It's okay. Hey, don't listen. I like tinkering with machines and stuff, so don't pick on the engineers. How about architecture? Oh, quite a few. Okay, cool. So there's a lot of you guys. Anybody for VR and games? Sorry, didn't want to leave them out. Okay, great, cool. Well, the first question I have for you, first question of Xpand, is do you want me to be truthful to you? Yes, okay. So if I'm going to be truthful to you, the playing field back when us old timers were here was much different. There were no schools teaching this stuff. It was just, and quite honestly, because there weren't so many people doing 3D and working in 3D and CGI, it was quite honestly easier to get in. So I actually consider myself very lucky to get in because I see some of the work coming out of students today. I'm like, wow, if I had to compete against that today, I don't know if I would be where I am in my career. So one of the things is you've got so many schools out there today, not just in the New York area. How many of you guys are here students? Okay, good. This event was initially created for you. You have to remember there are schools, tons of schools here in New York that are teaching CGI, but there's also tons of them all over the country and all over the world. So it's getting rather crowded, and I'm not sitting here trying to shock, awe, fear you in anything. I'm just hitting you with a dose of reality that every graduating class that comes out every year, there are more artists and hopefully more skilled artists in the pool to play the game with everybody else, with all the shops and studios. That's a lot of competition from your classmates. So for all the industries as well, whether it be movies, commercials, TV shows, engineering, architecture, it's not the old days. Everybody does CGI now. It's been around for long enough where it's just part of, you have to be able to provide this to your clients. So that means there's already departments that are staffed, and there's already, people who have gotten their jobs and are not necessarily ready to retire, whatever. Bottom line is, the playing field that you're about to embark into, hopefully. I don't know if you guys are seniors, juniors, high school, whatever. But eventually, you're going to be plopped into the real world, and you're going to want to be able to, make a car payment based on making 3D. And if you want to be able to do that, you're going to need to be able to, obviously, get a job, whether that job is a freelancer or a staffer. The whole idea of Xpand was to show you guys options and to bring to light things that some of us in the industry believe are not quite as obvious to the student level of 3D creator as it should be. So tonight's presentation is what you're going to see. You're going to see 8 very talented, very highly regarded studios based in New York that span from working on movies and TV all the way to VR and architecture and design and everything else in between. What's great about that is if you're working in one industry and things kind of dry up job-wise, you can always jump over for a month and go do some architectural work, and you can keep the money coming in. Now, tonight's presentations, regardless of whether or not you saw the word 3ds Max out there on any of the advertising, which is it is focused, tonight is focused on that, but it's not focused on it in a sense of like, well, this is a better tool. This is the tool that these 8 studios have chosen to build their pipeline on. And they've done it for whatever reasons they've done it. Obviously, they had good reasons to do it. We just wanted to show you that if you learn this as well, maybe this is an area you might want to be able to work with these studios, some that you may have heard of, some that you may not have. So tonight's going to run, we'll basically have 8 studios here. After I finish blabbing up here, we're going to have our friends from AMD coming up who helped us put all this together. A big shout out to all our sponsors. We'll hear from some of them on stage tonight. He'll be coming up. He'll show you a little bit about what Radeon Pro is all interested in and why they're interested in helping the community. And then we'll go right into the presentations. At the end of the night, after the 8th presentation, we're going to have a small presentation by Thinkbox Software, another one of our sponsors, to show you some cool software that you probably don't know about, you might know about, but that's been used on many pieces of media, shall we say, that you are certainly familiar with. And then we're going to end with doing the raffle to see who wins one of our 3 prizes tonight. I believe it's safe to say also that because of the attendance level that we have here, we're going to be giving everybody here a 1-month free access to Pluralsight's video tutorials. So you guys will all get that on your way out, okay? And then after Dbox shows and I come up and say goodnight to you guys, we're going to go into the reception hall and you guys can meet the studios, you can talk to them, have some food, play with the Vive, check out the Lenovo machines that are sitting out there, and just have a good time. So thank you again for coming, and I hope you guys enjoy tonight's presentation.
Without exception, every visual effects company, every previous house is experimenting in virtual reality. So at every point along the content's lifespan, from creation to testing to consumption, it requires GPU, and the answer is Radeon Pro.
So the purpose of WX7100 is to create the most affordable workstation solution for professional VR content creation.
To be spontaneous, you can't be as clean and as specific as what a game design team would be able to do.
Yeah.
You have to just throw everything at it, and that's what the Radeon Pro SSG technology is enabling us to do.
We have taken this terabytes of memory and attached it straight to the GPU, right on the card. Can we do 8K video editing in real time? So if you unlock the frame rate, it is running over 90 hertz at 4.5 gigabytes per second straight out of the Radeon Pro SSG.
Loom is a completely new way to do video stitching using 360 cameras. VR content has required many cameras working at high resolution. And after the capture takes place, there's a lot of work which has to be done to stitch the images together. It doesn't have to be done afterwards. It can be done in real time.
We're grading 4K stereo VR material. It's pretty demanding stuff, and when you start throwing on multiple layers and doing compositing, doing all that other kind of work, it just bogs down a system. And as soon as we started using the Radeon Pros, it's a real-time tool and things got real-time again.
I'm very excited because we announced a partnership with AMD and Radeon Technologies in order to optimize Nuke for OpenCL and with Radeon so that our users, our community of people, can work with AMD's new product.
Game engines have become more powerful and more prevalent across a number of verticals. In fact, it's arguable to say we probably shouldn't call them game engines anymore, but just engines.
We're very excited to show Adam. The goal was to showcase what can be done in real time with Unity, what beautiful cinematic experiences can be created with it. And also, of course, to showcase how powerful technologies like AMD's Radeon can allow the users for a very smooth viewing experience.
We want you to be able to get hold of the tools which can help you to create and tell your story. We have a renderer which runs on Intel CPUs, runs on AMD CPUs, it runs on our GPUs, and yes, it runs on NVIDIA GPUs too.
What we saw in AMD was an incredible commitment to the entertainment industry. We saw a partner who was prepared to invest in the community and who was about raising the creative bar to success. And at the Foundry, we're all about empowering professional content creators and allowing them to achieve their finest work. And so working with a like-minded partner seemed like a natural thing to do.
Whether you're an engineer, or whether you're an artist, or whether you're a filmmaker or a game maker, we want you to know that there's a company which really is here for you, and we're going to continue to make products, not just because they might sell well, but because they're going to be powerful tools to help you. And that's something which we're really committed to.
From AMD's Radeon Technologies Group, please welcome Ben Damprisi, East Coast Business Development Manager.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Kim, thanks for putting this on. Great job. No slides for me, can be really quick. So you may have seen a lot of our branding has been Radeon Pro, but the company is AMD. In the past, you've seen FirePro. So we have rebranded ourselves as a Radeon Pro team at SIGGRAPH, and you'll see our products migrating over from red FirePro over to blue Radeon Pro. I'm the guy outside I've got the Vive. All the systems, all the Lenovo systems out there have some type of AMD card in it. The one that I'm running the Vive on and two of the others are running a WX7100. So those are the first industry-ready professional graphics cards for VR. We've got other cards out there that are for video compositing, for animation, for architectural visualization, for heavy data sets. You may have seen when the video was on, they were talking about the SSG card. It's not actually a card, it's more of a concept, but it's going to be the first productized 1 terabyte video card, GPU card. So where we're at is I want you all to come out and try the Vive, of those folks who haven't, so I'm going to have that up and running. We are giving away a W8100, which is a FirePro card, which was on top of my machine at the end. And that's a mid-level professional graphics card for, I should backtrack, I've worked for Alias, Autodesk, and the Foundry over my 25-year career. I actually had hair when I started this thing. I mean, I've got like a lot of hair, like an afro. So we're giving away one of those cards. If there's the students come on in, let's take a look at the Vive. We'll play around with that. But if there's any companies here that want to talk to me about evaluating any of our technology, and especially some of the studios that are here presenting, I'm your man. Again, my name is Ben. We're really proud to be, I guess, one of the platinum sponsors. And I look forward to meeting you all and enjoy yourselves. And this is a great event, and hopefully it's the first of many from Kim. All right? Thanks so much.
Ladies and gentlemen, from Taylor James, Executive Creative Director Mark Knowles.
Cool. I overcame the first hurdle. I didn't trip up the stairs. So, all good. Cool. So, guys, firstly, thank you so much for coming out tonight. It's good to see so many people here. And by the sounds of it, we've obviously got a mixture of CG guys and students and veterans and studios and stuff. So it's a good sort of platform to be talking to you all about this stuff. I think it's the sort of thing that I would have wished about, when I first started out, 10 years ago. So I'll give you a bit of an introduction to Taylor James and kind of tell you who we are and what we're all about. So we began in London about 18 years ago, predominantly as a print house, believe it or not, but that sort of changed drastically over the years. Our current kind of topic is that we basically obsess about imagery regardless of the platform. So a lot of what Kim was talking about earlier is very much about we produce content regardless of the medium. And that's kind of where the industry is now. You used to have a lot of specialists producing content for a lot of specific platforms. It's diversified now, which is reflected in the talent pool as well. We basically are a creative collective. So we have artists across every single medium. So whether that's concept artists, previs guys, modelers, textures, lighters, shaders, whatever the case may be, we have them in the studio in-house to be able to facilitate the client work that we do. So we have offices in London and New York, as I just said, and we've just expanded to LA. So I'm sorry for any of you guys that had that joke lined up. I've just, see what I did there. So kind of talking a little bit about our pipeline. Our pipeline is predominantly 3ds Max centric, but as with everything these days, it's about choosing the right tool for the job. Now, the good thing for us is in the majority of cases that is 3ds Max, but it's also important to make sure that we're giving our clients the best offering, and sometimes that might be Houdini, whatever the case might be. It really depends. 3ds Max is a great tool for us though, because I would term us as a reactive company. So by reactive, I mean that we have short turnaround times. We need to do a lot of volume. Obviously budgets sort of flex, and 3ds Max enables us to get the artists into the studio that often can manage every part of the pipeline. So a lot of the times, and this is going to be kind of a constant theme throughout the presentation, is that it's all about making yourself as kind of as viable as possible. We sort of struggle sometimes to get in just a modeler, just a lighter, just an animator, because those turnaround times are so tight. We need people with that kind of broad spectrum spectrum knowledge. So our pipeline, we've invested an awful lot in extending it as well. So 3ds Max is awesome for, even if there's R&D engineers out there, it's great for plugins, it's great for scripting, it's great for building, on top of, which I think is one of the core strengths. And you'll see that with a lot of the vendors that are here from Thinkbox and people like that. There's some fantastic plugins out there that really help, expand that workflow significantly. And also, a lot of our core work is automotive work, where we're doing volumes. So we might be turning around 1,200 shots or 1,200 print images for, Ford or GM or somebody like that for brochures and catalogs and things like that. So our pipeline is very 3ds Max centric. It's very much about choosing the right tool for the right job, but obviously that is reflected in the people that we hire as well. So in terms of recruitment, this is really it in a nutshell. The more you can do as an artist, the more we're going to want you. If I have somebody that comes to me and says, right, I'm a generalist, I can do modeling, texturing, lighting, shading, and compositing, I'm going to go with them every single time rather than having to get 5 guys in separately to do one individual part of that pipeline. There's a lot more efficiency there. It obviously is reflected in the timelines as well. Now, that's not to say that we don't get in people for specific jobs. We get in a lot of individual animators. We might get in a lot of simulation artists doing effects and R&D. But it really, really helps. The more you can do, the more sort of, the more we want you. So the downtime for a 3ds Max artist, I would say, and this is my spurious facts, is basically like 1/10 of that of other disciplines. For every Maya guy that I get in, I could probably get in 5 Max guys. It's kind of, we need more Max people in the industry. There's a lot of opportunity out there, and like Kim said, you might have a bit of downtime in architecture. You want to come and spread your skills into visual effects or animation. You can do that if you've got those skills. These are kind of important that aren't necessarily technical aspects of who you are and what you do. It's essential that you're a team player and who can creatively collaborate. A lot of the time, you're all artists, you're all creative people. We want that creative input on every single job we do. My role as the ECD is to sort of drive that boat and get us to the end of the road, but equally I realise that at every single stage, there's multiple people feeding in, and that's not to say that the guy that sits on reception might have a great idea. It's as valid as mine, So we want creative people that can tell stories. We need people that can creatively problem solve though as well. A lot of that independent creative problem solving is so important. There's an age-old adage that's, there's 1,000 ways to skin a cat, and that's never more true than in CG. There's no right or wrong way to do something, only the way that gets you there the quickest and with the best result. This is one thing I would say from a recruitment perspective. I see hundreds of reels every month, every single month. And the first 10 seconds of your reel is either a complete hook or a complete turn-off. Even if you have bad titles, I don't have the time to necessarily sit there and go through every single 3-minute reel that I see. So you've got to capture my attention with the first 10, 15 seconds of your reel. That's super important for me. And there's people have different perspectives on that stuff, but that would be a top tip. At this point, I was actually going to show you my reel that got me a job 10 years ago, but I just couldn't bring myself to do it. It was flipping awful. So I kind of skipped that, but my background is as a CG artist, despite the fact that I'm a creative director now. So these are kind of some of the top tips that I learned as I started to go into the industry. You're going to learn more in the first 4 weeks of being in a job than you'll learn in 4 years at college. And now some of you are probably sitting there thinking, I just spent $100 grand at college. Jesus Christ, could I have just spent 4 weeks at a job, That's not quite what I mean. When you're working on your own individually in an environment that you control, you have your own decisions. You make your own decisions. You can do whatever you want. Now, you'll get an end result out of that. But sometimes when you're put into a pipeline and you have to collaborate with other people, it's a different way of working. And it's about understanding, what your role is, how your role affects other people. And that kind of leads me on to the next point, is understanding the impact of your work for the rest of the pipeline. I see so many guys and girls that have come out of college these days, and they've been sort of directed, or they've chosen a path straight out of college, and they're like, I want to be an animator, I want to be a modeler, and they neglect every other skill that they have. And that is so important, that you come out of college with a generalist mindset, that you understand, if I'm a modeler, how does that affect animation? How does that affect rigging? And how does that affect effects? It's so important that you understand those other assets of the pipeline, because they all come together to create that whole at the end of it. And the third thing, you guys have already started. It's all about networking. So coming to these events, meeting the studios, meeting the peers, meeting the people that you're going to be working with on a daily basis, that's super important to get your name out there and start to build those connections and those relationships from an early stage. That's one thing that, the sort of 2 and 3 there as things that I would have loved to have done when I left college. As I said, a generalist skill set, it's going to make you a far more attractive proposition. I just want to get in one guy to do the whole job, frankly. And whilst there's definitely benefits to specializing and you're going to get maybe a higher quality result for that one part of the pipeline, you've still got to get in 5 other people to finish the job. So then the next thing, separate yourselves from your competition. I remember being at college and it was so competitive. You were competing with your peers, you wanted to build the best model, the best effects, the best explosion, whatever the case might be, and you're competing and it's like, oh yeah, I'm top of my class, this is great. You get into the industry and you realize none of that matters because everybody's better than you when you first start. You're going to come out of college and you might have some great reels, you might have some great shots, and this sounds really negative, sorry, but you're going to basically want to separate yourselves. You want to get that hook. So you want to have that first 10 seconds on your reel and I'm like, okay, I haven't seen that before, and really work hard to kind of explore that creatively. And the next thing is being part of a team. You have to be resourceful, you want to be positive, and you want to be proactive. Everybody, a lot of the time, we do this as a hobby, frankly, because we all love it. It's not really a job, and we'll spend a lot of time, with the people that we're working with, and you want to have that positive kind of attitude in the studio. And I think, having that as students going into job interviews is super important. So what we're going to do now is I think we're going to get onto a couple of, stop with all the slides, the words and stuff, and I'll show you some of the work that we've done before. So I'll shut up for a moment. So believe it or not, that was actually an advert for a drug. You wouldn't have necessarily got that from the actual thing, but it was. I've got a couple of behind-the-scenes shots which I'll kind of talk over, but like I said at the top of the conversation, we're concept to completion. So basically, you guys would, agency would come to us with a napkin drawing, and we would take that, we'd turn it into storyboards, we would pre-visit, we would do a load of look dev, we would do any of the modeling, the texturing, the lighting, the shading, any simulation, final compositing. So there's a couple of kind of shots there from the film. And I think one of the strengths that we have as a business is our strength in breadth. The amount of work that we do and the diversity of the work. I know, you obviously saw the show reel at the front of the conversation. That's it. We don't really have a niche, I would say, but it's really quality across a broad, spectrum of platforms. Some sort of screen designs and stuff that we do. The pipeline that we follow is fairly linear in that respect. It sort of follows those different aspects that I identified earlier. Cool. So the next one.
Welcome to Regal.
So believe it or not, I included that because I actually haven't seen it in the cinema yet. I'm probably a load of you have seen it before me. But so there's some of the behind the scenes here from like, we start off with the style frames to try and get that overall look and feel down. And then, we sort of end up moving into that previous stage. So there's some previous we did here. We had the unenviable task of basically trying to recreate what was basically a cult title sequence from Tom Brass. Their previous Regal Cinema roller coaster was basically in the theaters for like 20-something years. It was crazy. So they finally. So the music wasn't our responsibility, just FYI. And if you read the YouTube comments, there's some comments about the music. So, you can see some of the look dev assets that we do here when we first start out. We're kind of exploring, looking at the concept art, trying to basically build the models, obviously shade them in a way that kind of conveys the overall style of the style frames. And then, we'll get into a couple of other aspects, such as some simulation. This was all done in 4K as well. So this was actually our first venture into 4K at a time when we weren't really doing a lot of 4K and it wasn't really kind of the norm. So this was a really interesting challenge. I think some of the frames were upwards of 24 hours because of these simulations with the liquid and that Coke river, and then those clouds as well. So the guys had a lot of fun on that one, and it was a lot of some late nights, but that's part of that kind of hobby aspect of doing what we do. Is it's people love doing it. So that's me.
For our next presentation from Neoscape, please give a warm welcome to Principal and Managing Director Ryan Cohen and Art Director Matt Clarey.
Is that better? Hello. Thank you for coming. I just want to take a moment. I'm Ryan. This is Matt, our art director at Neoscape. So I just wanted to start off by saying thank you to Kim again. Kim and I go way back in a lot of different presentations, and he's really been always at the forefront of pushing our industry and really getting it out to students and people in the industry. So it's great to have it continue. I also want to thank the other presenters because these kind of events are really great for us as well as artists. We always look to everybody else's work and get inspired in all different ways. So it's really great to kind of see your work and have conversations. So these kind of networking events are great. And for the students also, we look at you guys or younger artists as well for inspiration. You're at the forefront of the creative curve or the technological curve. So you're really bringing with you a lot of things that we don't know or we're looking to kind of learn. So it's great to kind of have conversations with you and see how you can kind of help us achieve the goals we're looking to do. So just quickly, we're going talk about a couple of things here. I'm just going to start off by just giving a little background about Neoscape. We've been in the business about 22 years. We're a full creative studio with offices in Boston and in New York. And we focus primarily on the real estate industry. So everything from renderings to film to all kind of content to kind of help envision an environment. The people we typically hire are they come from all different realms of the creative industry, from architects to filmmakers, photographers, musicians, writers, anybody that likes to create things. That's always the most important thing. People that kind of, again, just like to kind of push the envelope in what they like to do and come together and collaborate to make cool stuff. The other thing, the goal of today, I think for me, is to really just kind of help you guys change the perception about architectural and the architectural fly-through. What we like to do is, again, we're sort of more creative and filmmakers and storytellers to kind of use architecture as kind of a platform, but to tell a story within that sort of industry. So Matt's going to walk you through a little bit of the type of content we create, and then I'm going to quickly go through a case study to kind of show you a little bit more in depth.
All right. So basically, we do almost exclusively work with 3D Studio Max in our company. We do a lot of work with architects, and one of the great things about Max is it's versatile and will work with all of the programs that architects use, like the Rhinos, the Revits, the SketchUps, things like that. So we'll use it, and we really sort of have it like use it through our entire process, from the concept through our proof of concept, our initial lighting, shading, et cetera, et cetera. So it's a great tool to use to take our client all the way through the process. We don't only do renderings, we do branding and campaigns as well. This is one for, it's all good. This is one for 40 10th Ave. This is a building on the High Line, a new construction. We work with the Gene Gang Studio. And we did logo design. We did sort of logo application, website design, and also sort of site photography, as well as the renderings we do for sort of a complete package for a real estate marketing effort. So these are some of our, they're going quick, but these are some of our images that we sort of worked closely with the architect and tried to sort of bring their visual vision, which was sort of the notion that this building gets out of the way of light, basically. It allows more light onto the High Line. It sort of carves the light, if you will, is it's kind of our working title for this entire project. But this is one of those very successful sort of campaigns that we did that showcases all of the different sort of disciplines that we do at Neoscape. Last, we also do films. This is probably around 70% of our business. Take a look.
This is our reel.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I apologize about the timing. This is my first time putting together a presentation with a video instead of slides. So I wanted to quickly go through a case study. This is something we just finished. Actually, hasn't even been released. So if anybody's taking photos or anything, I just appreciate putting them away for the moment. Our client came to us to commission us for a property in Brooklyn. They're building a 600,000 square foot ground-up construction in Red Hook. They're trying to bring in people like Facebook or Google or someone from the West Coast. So it's our job. What's interesting is with a small studio like ours is we don't really have, there's no existing brand. There's no agency of record or anything like that. So we're really kind of able to control and create the entire film. So we wanted to really sort of, we had to capture a couple things with the film. We had to make sure that they understood that it's easy to commute to it. There's amenities, that there's rooftop design and open spaces. It's on the waterfront. So we knew we had to capture those elements. And we wanted to do it in a way that was similar to those types of brands, that are hiring youthful people and energetic, powerful people. So we're looking at things like GoPro and Red Bull that are those styles of marketing. To kind of capture that in this piece. So this was a mood edit we put together just to give them a sort of first idea of what we wanted to do. So it goes on, but you get the idea. So again, they bought into this, they loved it. So then it's really, again, an exciting part of our studio is we're super collaborative. So it's a very small team of we have a creative director, an art director, a couple of artists, a one-person film team, and a project manager. So we really everything from creative concept to this type of stuff through creative development, through production. It's really, everyone's involved in it from, storyboarding to actually going out in the shoots. So I just wanted to quickly, again, we'd never done a film like this before. We do a lot of, CG films. So we had to figure out how to get this done. So again, that's really an exciting part for us. So this next part is really just, oh, sorry, you can go to yeah, play that. So again, this is sort of our initial concept with, this is a Red Bull ad. Guys, they hired, some professional skateboarders to go through the office. Then we're using Max to do all our previs and seeing, how we can use the skateboarding shot to kind of really show how large this space is. Then we have to, figure out how to do this. This is me skating through our office, just as good as the guy in the commercial. And then we make sure we can kind of roto it. So again, it's really important that we have very high expectations, so we have to make sure we can kind of deliver on what we do. So then we go through a lighting test.
Put a dog in there too.
Yeah, that was a discussion we had. Matt wanted to put the dog in. I thought the skateboarder, he wanted to jump over the dog with the skateboard.
Would have been awesome.
But it was one of our coworkers' dogs we thought it could get hurt. Some more previs. Again, we're always looking at the right technology, and there's always issues with the technology of the equipment. And then it figures itself out. So we shot it on a Dragon with the Ronin. Casting, they wanted a bearded hipster. We can only find this skateboarder in Brooklyn. So we found this skateboarder in Pennsylvania that we had to bring in just because he had a beard. But then he ended up being 6'4", and he was too tall for the rest of the talent. So you'll see in the final shoot that it was. So then we actually had to shoot it. We couldn't do it on a green screen because it was just not big enough. So we had to shoot it in Union Square. A bunch of extras. That's my take on it. my behind the scenes take, and then this is the actual shot. So it's great because we were rotoing everything. We don't have to worry about the people in the background or anything else. And actually, the overcast skies really helped us because we didn't have to worry about direct suns because he's supposed to be in the middle of an office. So for once, the overcast helped us out. And this is the rough key in the environment. This is where Matt wanted to do a kickflip over the dog. And then the final shot. So, this is just one shot of, I think there were like 58 shots in the film or something like that. So there's a lot of complicated shots. These typically are between 2 and 3 minutes. So there's a lot that goes into planning. This was in Brooklyn, but a lot of the commuting had to be from Manhattan or Brooklyn to Manhattan and all over. So again, it's a small group. It's a lot of fun. So just want to show you real quick the final film, and then move on. Thank you. So again, if anybody has any questions on, we'll be at our table, but looking forward to the rest of the presentations. Thank you. All right, thanks.
welcome to the stage, from Parachute, executive producer Sara, Eolin.
Thank you guys so much for coming out tonight. Most of you might have been here to see Sam O'Hare. He is one of the founders of Parachute with me. He's the artist. He's the creative director. I'm the one that puts together the bids and the calendars. So I thankfully won't tell you about the bidding process and the calendar process because it's really not as exciting. But we built Parachute. It kind of came out of possibly a different way than most of the studios were formed. I'm also the executive producer at Arrow Film, which is a commercial production live action company. Sam is also a live action director through Arrow Film, which is why he's not here tonight. And he came into live action directing through visual effects. He went to school for architecture, worked at Uniform in the UK, which is an ArcBiz studio there. We met, he came to New York, started working in commercials, freelancing, and when he wanted to get into live action, we realized that he needed a place for his CG to go. And it was weird because he found that he was on the live action side and bidding against companies where he was also freelancing. It was weird. So we decided, why not just build a studio? Because we didn't know how crazy that was, we just did it, and here we are. It's been 5 years, so woohoo! So everything that Sam does comes from a live action and visual effects standpoint and kind of comes together in the middle, which you probably saw a little bit on the reel. We are exclusively 3ds Max in our studio. It is harder to find Max artists than it is to find Maya artists, which I think for you all, please stay with Max because we need more Max artists. But also you're more employable. I think everyone has said it. Max is much more versatile. We work on really tight timelines in commercial work. It can be a project for 2 weeks. It can be for 3 months. But it's not something where, working in a pipeline where there's one person doing one thing and that's it. It just doesn't work. And we're able to be a lot more flexible with budgets. We win more jobs. We can beat out bigger studios because we're more efficient and we still have the same creative. Max doesn't limit you creatively at all. It has more plugins. It's really so incredibly versatile that I can't say enough about it, and I don't even know how to use it. So that's something. I'm going to take you through some of our VFX breakdowns just so you can see a little bit more about how we work through our work. So this is a spot that we did for Chrysler. Chrysler sponsors Miguel Cabrera, but they don't sponsor Major League Baseball. So we couldn't use anything that had to do with Major League Baseball. And there's nothing that looks like a Major League Baseball stadium other than a Major League Baseball stadium. And we also had Miguel for 4 hours. So other than that, everything was great. So we shot him for about 4 hours in Michigan at a high school baseball field and built everything else in Max. So everything was based on Comerica Park, just enough so that we wouldn't get sued. We changed everything. We shot 40 extras that they were so nice to let us shoot because they're SAG. That's a whole other story. But we basically built everything and had CG crowds as well. CGs were done with a plugin called Anima. So this is a spot that it ran on national television for about a year. This is a spot for Wells Fargo that's actually running now. We did it in 2014, and it was going to be something that they said was going to run for 10 years. I have to give a shout out to Nicole Milius, who is here, that rotoscoped horse legs. If you've ever rotoscoped horse legs, it's terrible. So Nicole, thank you for doing that. But we had to shoot this in October in California, which isn't known for its snow. So we had snow blankets, but for the most part, everything we had to build in post, including the fact that they didn't like that guy's hat. So we had to change his hat. which is what happens. Welcome to advertising. But there is the full background replacements. All the shots were tracked, 3D stabilized. We did a matte painting for this shot. Grow effects was used to make the trees and particle effects to put the snow. And this probably took us about 6 weeks. This is a spot we did for Medieval Times. They wanted Medieval Times to look like Game of Thrones. Medieval Times does not look like Game of Thrones, and we had to shoot it in their nice little mud pit that they call a theater. So we built everything in Max, again, using Sam's architecture background really helps with these things. But we used 4 artists on this, which is, I think, pretty impressive. The snow was added as a particle effect, and we added steam and breath for the horses as well. This was a big parade scene that they wanted to do that we built all the plates for. Put this together in Fusion. Fusion is a node-based compositing system that's very similar to Nuke, but the licenses are a little bit cheaper. So that's the producer in me. I like that. But all of the backgrounds were designed and created by all of our artists at Parachute, and that guy actually plays the king in Medieval Times in Anaheim. If you ever go, that's him. He actually dates the princess. That's weird. This is a spot that we did for Nabby. We did a previs for this. We set up all the cameras, all of the movement, because we had to do these smooth moves. Gave all of that camera information to the motion control team. The client on this wanted super duper high-end furnishings for children, which I don't get either, but that's cool. So again, we built all of the backgrounds in CG. It just worked out better timing-wise, and from a building standpoint for shooting, it's just way too complicated, way too expensive. And we just, frankly, didn't have the time for the build in the front end, but we did in the back end. And since we were doing so much CG anyway with the camera movements, it worked out to do all of that in CG. This is something we just did for Hudson Yards for their sales suite. This is a 14K image. We shot on 4 Red cameras from New Jersey. We also shot with another camera doing a sky dome, so it captured all of the lighting information, which we used for the lighting for when we did the render. All those buildings, some of them aren't designed yet. They're like, you can design buildings, right? We're like, actually can't. So some of those buildings might change, but that was the first thing that we had done in such high resolution, and trying to figure out how to render a 14K image. If you know anything about rendering, it kind of makes you want to throw up a little. But we did it, and it got done, and everybody's happy. So yay again. For our last piece that I'm going to show is hold on a second, sorry. Is by far what we're most proud of. Sam and myself are huge Tesla fans, and this was a brand that we admired and wished that they advertised it, but they don't, so we did this for them. It became a bit of a viral hit. TED Talks founder retweeted it, and Tesla tweeted it, and it became this whole kind of a thing, which was great. But every single frame of this is CG. The environments were modeled from scratch. The grasses and other vegetation were built in Grow effects and distributed with Forest Pack Pro, along with all the rocks and gravel. Sam also was seen walking around New York City taking a lot of pictures of pavement for about 6 months and looked like a crazy person. But this is what you do when you're an artist. Fume effects was used to build the wind movement through the scenes and drive the cottonwood particle movements. The skies were built as a 12K 360-degree HDR panorama in Terrigen, and then used as both background passes and for the environmental lighting. The hero firefly was rigged and hand animated in Max. Other close-up fireflies and lighting were hand animated. The swarm at the end was built as a particle effect. The lighting for the swarm was built using the data operator in particle flow. You can tell that I did not write this. I'm so sorry. So we did a bunch of things, and it all look cool. That's really unfortunate that that is the producer in me, but we're incredibly proud of this. And this is kind of, if you want to know what Sam O'Hare is like, this pretty much says who he is. This was done over the course of 2 years. If we didn't have other paying jobs in between, it probably would have taken us maybe 3 to 4 months. But it was, again, just being that Max is so powerful, we did this with 4 artists. So maybe if someone was paying us, we would have gotten maybe 3 more, but from a sense that you can do something on this scale with Max, I think is really powerful. So here we go. For my last parting word, I would say as my biggest piece of advice is be passionate about what you do and do something about it. The best artists that we have are people who tinker, people who figure things out, people who are really focused on what they want to do and make sure that their work is perfect. And if it's not perfect, they figure out how they can make it so. That's the best thing that you can do as an artist, and that is how you become extremely valuable in any job that you have. If you have any questions, I'll see you afterwards, and thanks so much.
Please welcome to the stage from FuseFX, the head of production and senior VFX supervisor, Mr. Greg Anderson.
Thanks a lot. Thank you guys for all coming out, and thanks Kim for inviting me to speak. This is pretty cool. All those people yelling over there are my Fuse people. So I am head of production and senior VFX supervisor at Fuse. I started the New York office about 2.5 years ago. We have offices in LA, New York, and Vancouver. The main owner, Dave Altino, and I have known each other for probably 13 years, so he said he wanted to expand in New York. He knew I had some experience with that kind of stuff, so here I am. Fuse, we are a visual effects company. The bulk of our work is visual effects for television, although we do feature work and we do commercials. We do any number of projects that range, our LA office does American Horror Story, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. We do shows like Blacklist, and most recently we did all the visual effects for Luke Cage. I was the direct supervisor for that show. We are a Max house. Our entire 3D pipeline is based on Max. It's, as everyone's been saying, it's a great tool. It's a very versatile tool. Everything that we do sort of, plugs into Max. So from fume effects and thinking particles, those are all sort of work really well with Max and Nuke. So it's a vital part of our pipeline. I will echo what Sara said. We are constantly looking for Max artists, so keep using Max. It's one of those tools that is really is a versatile tool, and it's really a corner pin for everything what we do. I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the work we did for Luke Cage. I think before I do that, though, I just want to talk about me for a second. I started in this business 20 years ago now, and at the time, you could not study visual effects in college. I studied architecture. So for me, you guys are in a much, much better position in terms of being able to actually be useful at work, because I was useless for about 6 months. And I went to MIT, so there's to give you a sense of like how different work life is from student life. I think some of the value, though, in kind of what I was doing in terms of studying architecture is I learned how to do what I do without sleep. Sleep is something you get rid of to do what we do. But, I think being able to kind of hone your eye and to really be able to look and think critically at the images that you're trying to create, because that's something that's a little, it's more difficult to teach, and it takes time to really become good at that. And lots of people can learn how to use the software, but to really become a good artist, you have to have a commitment to developing your eye and to develop your sort of critical problem-solving skills, because particularly for visual effects, that is essential if you really want to be really good at it. So I would encourage you all to sort of continue in your sort of work in that regard. Let's go into some of the work that we did. So Luke Cage, if you're not familiar, and some of these scenes are going to loop for a little bit. It's a Marvel character, first black character to have his own comic in the 70s, and first to have his own show. So he's super strong and virtually invulnerable. So this is a scene from the second episode where a thug attempts to punch him in the jaw, and that doesn't work out so well for him. To pull this off, we actually shot this there were 3 different passes that we shot. So we shot Mike Coulter with a Phantom at 1,000 frames a second to create and we kind of blew on his cheek with a little bit of air to show that his skin would ripple, but for the most part, he wouldn't move. The stunt guy's arm and hand, we actually shot at 2,000 frames a second with a Phantom because we wanted to show all the various buckling that would happen if someone was punching something that, like punching a wall. And so, and then we took his arm, we scanned it, and basically created a skeletal structure and that we could break to really create this compound fracture to really sort of sell this sort of big moment. This is the first time in the series that we see him use his powers. And so that was our sort of end result. It was a pretty effective first showing of his powers, so it worked out well. Let's go to the next one. So, I don't know if you haven't, there's some spoilers. If you haven't seen Luke Cage yet on Netflix, sorry. You're about to see some big moments. So essentially, he is trapped in, he's eating dinner in a building, and the bad guy basically, after realizing that they can't harm him with, bullets or knives or anything else, he decides to launch a missile at the building and blow it up and collapse it on top of them. Obviously, we did not blow up a building. We shot this up in Washington Heights so what you're seeing is basically, it starts off, we're watching it on a security camera feed, and then within that feed, then you see sort of that we had to go and we shot all the background in Washington Heights. We scanned the building, the block, for the entire scene so that we could create a 3D model from it. Then using thinking particles, we were able to sort of create this initial simulation of a collapse, which you only start to see. We wanted to do the whole thing, but we ran out of money, so they got a little teaser of a building collapse before the shot's over. So, and that, once we have that simulation helped drive the FuseFX fireball that you see here. We actually did shoot a small explosion that is a part of this on location. That's the section of it that was off to the right that's kind of small and kind of wimpy, because it's you can't really do it bigger than that without causing some real damage. So we use that as our sort of foundation to build upon. So yeah, let's go to the next one. This is the aftermath of that explosion. So that explosion takes place at the end of the 3rd episode, and then the 4th, you see that the entire building has come down. So this particular scene was trickier in some regards because we actually shot this in 2 different neighborhoods, this entire scene. So the building that you see there with the green screen was the main sort of city block where the apartment building where he lived in. We couldn't, because the building was actually there, we could not shoot the debris pile in the same place. So we found another city block that was kind of the same, had sort of the same scale, and that's the can you freeze it all? Can you just take it back to the okay, on the real debris pile, just so I can talk about that a little bit. So essentially, this practical debris pile that art department created was about 30 by 30 and about 15 feet high in a separate location. And so they wanted the actors to have something physical to react to. So our job was to take that, we scanned the entire debris pile to create a 3D model of it. And then we used that to basically create the proper size debris pile for an entire building to come down. So using the real practical debris and concrete and dirt and wood and whatnot, that became the basis for creating our collapsed building. And then for the interiors, it was an apartment building, so we went through and in each one of these what would be apartments, we designed, I don't know how many individual apartments. Kim, how many do we do? Kim actually worked on this stuff. A lot. So there was just an insane amount of detail that went into this. We probably worked on this shot for a total of about 3 months. And so once we have all that built, we rendered it, added atmosphere and particle effects to create our sort of, kind of smoldering pile. So these kinds of effects were essential for Luke Cage because unlike with Daredevil, he can't be hurt. So the scale and scope of some of the effects had to be much larger to make it convincing. One thing that I think I wanted to point out, which I think is a contrast to some of the companies that do commercials. I worked on commercials for a long time. We always hired generalists, people that did everything. But in television and in features, there tend to be teams of specialists instead. So for us, we have a group, we have compositors, we have separate 3D guys, we have trackers, we have some people that are just effects animators, and in the way that we work, for our process, it makes it it allows us to get higher quality results. We don't necessarily have the same schedule demands that a lot of commercials have, so we have more time to kind of finesse each of these individual departments. So if you're interested in television or in features, I would encourage specialization as well. Also, so when I started in the business, I started off as an effects animator. I did particle effects in a very old package for some of you old timers called Dynamation. And then eventually moved into lighting and compositing and supervising. So this particular shot is one where when he first gets his powers, we see earlier in the series he kind of has a habit of, in anger, punching walls. And so this is in anger, he punches a wall after he gets his powers and realizes that something's different. So this was done, there was a practical wall that was rigged to break. So that little section inside the hole is real. The rest of the wall is CG, and all the debris and whatnot is also CG. So it needed to feel impressive. It was the first sort of, real display in his origin story of his power. So we wanted to make it big. You can go to the next one. So this scene is just a continuation of, CG walls and particle debris that we created in Max and Thinking Particles to really help kind of amplify the extent of his powers. You can go to the next one. And then finally, in the end, he punches through concrete to get out. We actually shot this. This was probably a piece of a set that was maybe only about this big. So that exterior wall we ended up remaking it as a CG wall because, as you can see, when it first breaks out, it breaks out in this big sort of, it was styrofoam essentially, chunk that kind of falls out, and it just didn't have enough weight, and it didn't break up in a nice way. So we ended up remaking the entire wall and all the debris as CG elements, and it had a lot more weight and realism to it. I think do you have one or two more? Yep. He punches out, he sees this, he's in a prison that's supposed to be off the coast of Georgia. This doesn't exist, there's no islands out there that would have this on it, so we had to create a completely fake scene where he looks out and he sees what in this case is a combination of stock footage water mixed with matte paintings for the shoreline and the sky. So that would be his view looking out. They imply that he basically dives in, swims to shore. And we can go to the next one. And looking back, this is what Seagate Prison looks like from the shore. This was all done as a 2D matte painting with stock footage. There's no CG per se in it, but it does illustrate some of the thinking and thought process and design skills necessary to create something like this. There was no concept art from the show. It was pretty much, this was our own efforts to say, this is what we think this should look like, and that's where it ended up. So I think I'm at time. Thank you all very much.
From Garou, director and co-founder Gaspard, Giroud.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Kim, for the very intimidating setup. I didn't expect that. So my name is Gaspard Giroud. I'm the co-founder of Garou, which is a tech company. I will develop a little further. I'll explain how we got to this teaser. I came to the US to study architecture, and then after going to a very expensive American school, I became a 3D artist because that was the best way to make a living, much better than architecture for sure. So I started by freelancing in New York, and after a few years, I founded a company with a fellow artist, an animator, and we created a company called Piranha. And Piranha was always sort of at the edge of commercial work and architecture, because we did a lot of architecture visualization, and we did also a lot of commercial work. Architecture because of my background, and commercial work because of his background in the doing animation for the commercial world. So we ended up creating a company that was always mixing a little bit the work. Today, we have 4 distinct divisions. The first one, I would say 3 divisions, and then we have Garou. The first division is Piranha, that over the years became basically an agency, communication agency. So for that agency, we do more like visual effect type work for our variety of clients in the commercial world. For the division that was doing the work we were doing in the world of real estate and architecture, is just opened recently under the name Public Square. So all the work we do in the real estate and branding is going there. And then finally, we worked, because of the work we were doing in the real estate, in real estate and architecture visualization, we did a lot of aerial filming. So we ended up opening yet another division that's called November Yankee, and that's started opening its door for television and films. And so we're very, very excited about the division as well, because the quality of the film we're able to do are very high. We just did our first feature film for a very famous Canadian director called Xavier Dolan. So all these three divisions are, very exciting for us. Now, a year ago, because of the cross-pollinating aspect of all these small eclectic companies that somewhat work together, but sometimes are also different, we developed a project. We started developing a project that turned into a tech company. That tech company is called Garou, after a French novel in which that was written in 1943, in which the protagonist, who's just a paper pusher in an administration, realizes that he can walk through walls. And so throughout his story, he goes to places, and when he goes to a remote location or somewhere inaccessible, like a bank or a jeweler, he would sign Garou. And so the name of the company is after that paper pusher. And so the reason we named it like that is because we're developing a platform in virtual reality where you walk around a world that is very similar to the real world, with one difference, is that you can put your hand through walls or you can walk through walls. And so the teaser you just saw show you, how the platform works. The platform works by visiting what you can call a scale model of the place you're visiting. In this case, it's New York City. And you're able to walk around that scale model, where, as you can see, the skyscrapers are up to 8 feet tall. And then that gives you access to different VR experiences. And so our partners and our clients are able to plug in content into this platform. If you want to know more about VR, we've been working in the world of virtual reality, especially with the room scale VR, which is very different from the 360 VR. I'll be very happy with my coworkers here to discuss it after the conference. Thank you very much. Oh, actually, yes, we have something else to show. Yes, I forgot we sent this to Kim, actually. This reel is the work we do in the world of architecture visualization. So actually I have a few things. Thank you very much. So yes, if you are interested to work in the world of real estate or architecture visualization with us, so that would be with our division Public Square now, and we have our two most senior and lead 3D artists here that you can meet. We are using 3D Studio Max. We always have. I started actually in 3D Studio Max. I was a 3D artist, as I said. Started with 3D Max in Paris before you could use it inside Windows. So that's kind of like Kim stage, that goes that way back. And then I forgot to say thank you to Kim. Thank you for everyone to come, and also how impressed I am by our friends and competitors' work. It's quite amazing to see how good you are. It's a little frustrating, but thank you for doing such a great work. I'd be very happy to meet some of you that, I've known your work. I've never met in person, so I'm excited about that part. Thank you.
Dead and kissed away, arena senses burn in flames. 1,000,000 miles from home, I'm walking ahead. I'm frozen to the bones. I am a soldier on my own. I don't know the way. I'm riding up the heights. Oh shame, I'm waiting for the call, the hand on the chest. I'm ready for the fight and fate. Iron shots stuck in my head. The thunder of the drums dictates the rhythm of the fast, the number of days, the rising of the horns ahead. From the dawn of time to the end of days, I will have to run away. I want to feel the pain and the bitter taste of the blood on my lips again. Snow is burning my hands. I'm frozen to the bones. I am 1,000,000 miles from home. I'm walking away. I can't remind your eyes, your face.
Ladies and gentlemen, from Huge, please welcome 3D team lead, Andre Holzmeister.
Good night, good evening. I'm sorry, English is my second language. I'm in the US for just 1 month, so I'm sorry. All right. English is not my first language. I'm in the US for just 1 month. So if I stay stuck just a little, just help me out, all right? So the thing is that I am a 3D lead at Huge right now, and I am also a director, and this is the last reel you saw. It was my director's reel. So I put my hands on almost every job I put my hands on. I'm always with my hands in the computer. And my background is, I thought I was going to draw comics back in the 90s. I started to work with 3D in 94, so it's 22 years ago. Yeah, I've been there too, Kim. So after that first moments that were very hard to learn 3D, and you guys are very lucky to be in a position that you have internet. I didn't. I had to study through books, and it was very hard to get myself knowing the things to do, like fantasy and sci-fi spots. No, it was just flying logos back then, all right? And the thing is that I had to learn everything and became a generalist because there was nobody to help me out back then. I was in a small city in Brazil, and I had to learn from the modeling to the shading, lighting, rigging, animation, rendering, and compositing. There is no compositing back then, actually. It was right directly from 3D, right? So, but I have been learning that along with the years. So there was something that was very weird also, is that there was no directors that understood the media back then. So I had to start learning storytelling also because I was trying to do animation, do character animation. That was what I love and what I liked to do for my life. So it was very hard in the beginning because storytelling is not something that's easy to learn. So I had to study a lot about that. And that was the hard part because 3D, as soon as the internet came in, we had like our small groups around the internet that we shared a lot of stuff, a lot of knowledge, and we could fast learn from each other. It was a very, very nice time. And the thing is that back then, there was no job in my city also. It was like, oh, I want to work with that, but I don't have a place to work because nobody does that. So what am I going to do? I opened my first studio. Back then, I was 17, and I started to work for myself and trying to knock in the agencies and say, hey, I can do flying logos. Can you see how cool is that? So, and they were very impressed because nobody did that thing back then. It was like Kim was saying, it was much easier if you were a guy that was like trying really hard to do that stuff in those computers. Oh my God, those computers. Oh yeah. So Pentium 100 megahertz. It was like the top of the line. It was like, oh my God, I'm out of the 486. So, so now I'm in Huge because I think there is an opportunity there to grow as the studio grows. We are a new studio. The studio is actually not so new, but the CG area of the studio is kind of new. So they hired me to help bring together a group of talented people, and do some new stuff. The thing is that Huge is a place that I like the opportunity because it is like they are working with the newest things that you can have in technology. Sometimes we are doing some animations for films. Sometimes we are doing VR. Sometimes we are doing interactive installations. And I think the future of entertainment and the future of computer graphics lies in that. Everything is going to change in the next few years. So I really like the opportunity to have to learn how to work for this new era that's coming. So when I was talking to the guys and they were talking about their vision for the future, I was like, oh my God, that's it. I was looking for a place that I can put my hands in this new stuff. And I've been doing a few of them in the past, but not quite as Huge wants to do in the future. So what we are looking for in a professional for the future, this new area of the studio that we are going to build it's obvious, but we want to see the passion about what you do. Working with CG is not easy. It's most of the time you are trying to go around a problem that you found. So you have to have passion for what you do so that you thrive to the end of the job. And this is not something that I say just out of my mind. It's something that you're gonna be doing for the rest of your life if you like it and if you want to do this for a living, right? So you're gonna be doing this more time than you spend with your family. So you have to have passion, be passionate about what you do. That's the first thing you can see in a reel from someone, is that if they really like what they do, it's in there. You can feel it. So put passion in your work, and never work for the company. Work at the company. Work for you. I never been working for any company that I've been. I've been doing this for 22 years. I work for myself. They are lucky to have me there, right? So it's just how I think. This is just how my mind thinks about my relation with the company, right? So of course we are trying to find technical expertise. So it's important, right? It's a great part of the job. We are going to be looking for generalists because we are going to be a small studio. We don't want to be like a giant production house. We want to be like a boutique that does incredible and beautiful jobs. So the idea is to have a team of generalists that are very good at least one of the areas of CG, right? You have to be very good in one, and you have to know your way around the others. So can you play the video?
كبيرة. أنا أول ما شفتها خفت. أيوة وقت ما مشينا شوي المي دخلت على البلم، وكل ما نمشي يطرش علينا مي. كنت بردانة كتير كتير كتير. بعد ما بردت خفت كتير 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 كتير. حاسة إنه أمي نغرق يطب الظلم هيك ونغرق. كل ما بمشي اليوم وكتير رفقة عندي كان. صلاة ما ضل حدا. اسمي ملاك، عمري 7 سنين.
Thank you. This film was a great opportunity for me as a director, and the thing is that they gave me a lot of creative freedom to do the whole film because they had no money. It was like they were trying to find a studio that would be capable of doing. They had 3 films to do, and the guys were talking to me, trying to make the studio that I founded in Brazil, if we are interested in doing the job. And I said, hey man, the studio is not in a good shape, and we are not gonna do that for free, that's for sure. But as a director, I really like the idea of being part of something that has this deep, that is the story of the Syrian refugee crisis that's going on right now, and how a war can shred apart a family and a country. So if I can help in any how, and if I can do the job, I will do it. So I got the job, and I said, okay, I will do it, but it has to be on my terms because it's a lot of job, a lot of work. I don't have a team. I have to do it on my own, and you guys are gonna, all right, say that, oh, let's change this and that, but I'm just one guy doing a lot of job, a lot of work. So they said yes, and I was like, okay, I'm really fucked. I'm sorry. But I was like, okay, let's do the job, and let's make it happen. And they accepted my terms, and I started doing the job. I had 5 weeks to do everything from scratch, and I didn't barely sleep in the end, but it was done. It's a unfairy tale about a girl that's trying to run away from Syria and get to Europe through the Mediterranean Sea. And the thing that I wanted to put in this film as much as meaning as possible in the allegories. I don't know if this word is okay, but analogies, like, for example, the boat. The boat, they didn't use a boat made from wood they usually use those inflatable boats to cross, or bigger boats. But the thing is that she was in an inflatable boat, and the inflatable boat doesn't look like it's very, very fragile. And I wanted to make it look very fragile, so I made a boat out of wood. And she was so afraid of drowning and her mother to drown with her, so she was afraid of the sea. The sea should be a character. The idea of making the sea so scary was one of the drives that we decided to make a character out of it. So just to finish that, I would say that the faceless guys in the boat were like, they were not her friends. They were like competitors trying to survive, trying to get to the other side. And if someone else is on their way on achieving that, it's a problem, right? So one of the guys, for example, threw away the bag she and her mother put. They were all sitting over the bags because there was no room in the boat, right? So the guy probably, it was annoying him, and he picked up the bag and threw it in the sea. It was like everything from the past lives, it was thrown away by someone. So everybody there was, it's a very sad story. So I wanted to put meaning for everything that we put in this film. So at the end, she's on the beach, and there is the storm, and all the darkness from the film is behind. It's a sad part of the film, but it's a new hope. She sees the sun rising, the storm is gone, and it's the light for a new life. So that was what I was thinking when I created the script and decided to go that way with that film. So that's it, guys. Thank you all for coming tonight. Thank you for hearing me and the patience. Thank you, guys.
Ladies and gentlemen, would you please welcome from Dbox, partner Mr. Phil Travis and partner Mr. Gabor Cseh.
Hello everyone, thank you for coming and thank you Kim. I'm Phil, I'm going to talk a little bit about Dbox in general, and I'll hand over to Gabor, who will do something a little more project specific. So what is Dbox? Well, we're a creative agency that specializes in marketing and branding of real estate. Basically, we end up making billionaires just a little bit more billionaire-y. We were founded over 20 years ago, and myself and Gabor joined 10 years ago in our then Amsterdam studio. As an agency, we've sometimes been credited with starting ArtViz in the US, but definitely in New York. It all began when 3 students at Cornell began teaching a class with the catchy title, Dialogue Box. I think there's a slide with their business card. The one after this is the first rendering they ever did. Pretty special. In the early days, they used to sneak into the lobbies of architects' practices with a crate full of beer and a small TV screen, hoping to lure people in with a beer and then try and persuade them what a computer rendering was. Since then, we've now grown to 3 studios, London, New York, and Miami, and we've got over 70 globally. As you can probably tell by now, we've been heavily involved in the regeneration of the World Trade Center site. This includes the initial competition, and then Governor Pataki asked us back to be involved in the world unveiling of the winning design. We've also won an Emmy for the documentary The Rising, and more recently, we produced the book for the One World Observatory gift shop. There you go.
There's the book.
Yeah. So this all kind of ties in a little bit with what it is that I just love about doing this job, is that you get to see the city you live in from vantage points and angles that many don't. And you also get a sneaky peek of what the future skyline is going to be. Dbox is quite unique in that we do everything in-house, the renderings, the web, the digital, the graphic design, and the photography. And from our perspective, this helps with quality control and design harmony. Because our philosophy is that you're only ever as good as your weakest project. So in the rendering team, we tend to think of ourselves as much as architectural photographers, as CG artists, but 3ds Max does play a major part in our pipeline. We tend to bring in juniors and train them up because there's so few artists that use 3ds Max. And we're prepared to spend that time in investing in the people from the beginning. But what we do look for in the outset is someone with a good eye and a passion for architecture. But if they're able to marry that with software knowledge, that is a huge bonus. As far as I'm concerned, the final piece of the jigsaw, and in my opinion, and a very important one, is personality and how it fits in with the team. We have to spend enough time with each other as it is at work, so it's good to get on with the people you're around. But with all that said, I'll hand over to Gabor now, and he'll do something a little more project-specific.
All right. Hello, everybody. My name is Gabor, and I'll be speaking a little bit about one of our recent projects, 432 Park Avenue. This is a super tall residential tower in New York City. It's standing at 1,425 feet. And not only it is the tallest tower to roof today, but also it is a very exclusive one with some record-breaking sales, including a penthouse that went for $95 million. So it was a really exciting project for us to work on. Here you can see the renderings that we did for the tower starting in 2011. And we did all the photography ourselves. Of course, the tower since topped out, and it's ready for occupancy. And here you can see a photo of it today. So what do we do at Dbox for projects like this? We do a lot of different things, from renderings to designing books and other printed material, through photography, film, and animation. For this particular project, amongst many other things, we created a magazine that's 200+ pages with articles about lifestyle, art, and culture in New York City, with a fashion editorial segment that shows a life in the future tower. We create all our 3D. You can see some sketches and the final results here. We create all our 3D in 3ds Max. And then for stills, we use Photoshop for compositing. We use Fusion for film. Here you can see another series that we did for this project that focuses on the windows. The windows are the largest ever on a residential building. So working with a ballerina, we did a series of photos that shows how the windows frame the views 1,200 feet up in the air. Another aspect of our job at Dbox is to create designs for sales centers for these projects. So again, for that, we use 3ds Max to come up with concepts for programming, various digital displays, and scale models for the buildings we're working on. Also, interior design. Here you can see the photos of the final space. It was in the GM building, the sales center for 4032. You can see that we created a 5K 10 by 10 foot digital wall that matched the size of the windows for all our digital content for this. Here you can see a model bathroom. We did a short film for this project. The design of the building was inspired by silverware created by Joseph Hoffman, an Austrian designer, in 1905. And we wanted to look at where the DNA, the design DNA of this building came from for this. And also thinking about what makes a New York tower iconic. Maybe this is the tower that King Kong would be choosing to climb up on top of today. Or this would be the tower that Philippe Petit would pick to do his tightrope walk on. Philippe Petit is the French artist who did the tightrope walk between the original World Trade Center towers in '74. And we loved this idea and reached out to Philippe, who was on board to work with us on one condition. He wanted to make sure that if he's shooting green screen, people will be able to tell that it's a trick. He didn't want people to think that he's faking. So we needed to grow the wire in front of him kind of magically, so that way you can tell that he's not trying to do anything fake. We shot in Long Island City for 3 days. And now we'd like to show you this short film. Please enjoy it. I'd like to ask you to please not record it because it's still a confidential material and we need to.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Please welcome our next presenter from Phosphene, CCO and Senior Visual Effects Supervisor, Mr. John Bair.
Hi everyone, thanks for coming out tonight. My name's Beck Dunn and this is John Bair and we're from Phosphene, which is a New York-based design and visual effects house. Phosphene was founded in 2010 by John, who's the Senior Visual Effects Supervisor, and Vivian Connolly, who's the Executive Producer. Since its inception, Phosphene's worked on an array of television and film projects, creating visual effects that range from CG bats and birds to trains, boats and helicopters, disfigured human and zombie faces, and alien creatures in a nebula in the sky. Our team is made up of visual effects supervisors, CG artists who model, texture, animate, and light, among other things, as well as compositors, producers, and coordinators, who all work together on each project to bring these scenes to life. These talented individuals use a variety of tools to get their job done, a key one of these being 3ds Max. 3ds Max has been an integral part of Phosphene's pipeline since we started and has been in use in some way on pretty much every project that we've worked on thus far.
I personally have been using 3ds Max for
about 20 years, and it's still my favorite environment of all the software that we use to work on. Even after all that time, I wouldn't really say that I'm an expert of any kind, but many of the people that work with us really are. And I really like in Max how there's really, truly so many ways to approach a shot. And I think that's great for teams to collaborate in that you can always have a designer, an animator, and technical directors all kind of working concurrently at the same time on shots. You know, in doing this, we were asked to think a little bit about what we're looking for in 3ds Max artists, and you know, there's a few things that came to mind, and I think obviously being technically proficient in the software is extremely helpful. That's always kind of a given, but beyond that, you know, I was really thinking of 3 things that apply not just to Max, but to, you know, many other types of software that we use and things that really help us in visual effects. So on that list, number 1, I would say having the eyes of a cinematographer. And what that means is in visual effects, it's incredibly important to understand how photography works, understanding good composition, understanding how light and cameras behave, how things move, and so on is very, very important. Number 2, having the approach of a researcher. And this is sometimes, I think, maybe one of the most important things that we kind of look for. It's critical to understand what you're about to do before you begin in visual effects, and I think in any of these fields. You need to become a mini expert on what you're putting into your shot. And that might mean learning about history or architecture, physics or biology, or any number of things, any number of subjects. And if you start out faithful to accuracy in the work that you're doing, I think that really opens up the opportunity to more elegantly break the rules of what you're doing for dramatic purposes later on down the pipeline. Number 3, having the understanding of a director. And this one's a little more confusing. I think, you know, for character animators, which we don't do tons of character work, but character animators really need to kind of have the mind of an actor. For what we do, having the mind of a director can be very helpful because it's really important to understand the context of what you're working on and how, you know, the small piece of work that you might be doing fits into the bigger picture. And everything we are doing is kind of building to have an impact on the scene and story. Knowledge, knowing the purpose of your work will also help you to be better and a much more creative artist. So those are really the 3 kind of strange things that I think really can be very helpful that are outside of all the technical requirements that you might need. But ultimately, it really comes down to having a very high level of enthusiasm for what you're doing. It just makes you, you know, the greatest artist that you can be. And that being said, we have a little reel that we're going to play with some of our recent work. And in these, I think you'll see that, you know, this shows that our artists have kind of been paying attention to that. This is some work from Tower Heist. On set, they built about 2 of the floors here of the elevator shaft, and we used a LiDAR scan of the set to create the initial model, and then we then extended the bottom of the set about 60 stories. In this shot, this is an all-CG elevator shaft using the same LiDAR scan, and we had a plate shot of the red car and the actors that was comped into the shot. This is a scene from A Most Violent Year. Here we used LiDAR scan of a 70s subway car to construct our model and replace the modern subway. In these shots, we used LiDAR scans of the subway cars, both inside and out, to create a complete model. We did complete camera track and then exported the model to Nuke so that our compositors could place graffiti through projection mapping and UV channels. This is Marco Polo. We used a camera track here to build a point cloud of the entire desert location. We took that model and extended the dunes, then distributed desert plants with Max's particle flow. This is Mr. Holmes, where we also used particle flow to distribute some of the destruction in trees throughout the environment. The Fifth Estate, here we imported the motion control move here that you see We then built a library of CG props and used the Max particle system to distribute desks, chairs, and randomized boxes and desk contents throughout the scene. This is True Detective. Here we built the scene extension based on the production design, and later on we used a cool script from ScriptSpot, which is a great resource to help us build the vines procedurally. This is Europa report. The next few shots kind of showcase the CG ship that we built for this film. It's definitely one of the most elaborate models that we've ever built in our studio. It was all built by Vance Miller and his team, and he used a lot of the collaboration tools to work with his team members that are built into Max. It's based on a production sketch, but Vance designed all of the finer details. In these shots, this is the surface of Europa, which is one of the most brutal texture maps that I've worked on. But the Max tools are amazing for that, and we used a lot of V-Ray displacement. We use a ton of photogrammetry in the studio using a program called PhotoScan that allows us to bring models straight into Max. And here for Europa report, we took photos of all the rocks in Central Park, all the great classic rock structures that are there, the glacial rocks. And from that, we constructed models which we retextured in Max to make look like ice. And we used V-Ray's subsurface scattering to kind of give it the icy, transparent look. This is Girl on the Train. We used photogrammetry from helicopter shots to rebuild all of these neighborhoods and some photogrammetry and CG trees and plants to fill out the landscape. These are some shots from the Get Down, which is still in production. Here we created massive environments to recreate the Bronx in the 1980s. We used photogrammetry again to build a library of buildings and rubble. We then used photo reference to add varying degrees of weathering and decay to all of these scenes. We also ended up using particle flow and FumeFX to build a library of fire and smoke. Our studio does a lot of digital makeup on various projects. This is from the Nick. For this, we used photogrammetry in two ways. First, we scanned the actress's face so that we could do a good camera track. Secondly, we scanned a prosthetic that was provided by production, including the damaged nose. We then built a rig to match, the intricacies of a very subtle facial performance so that we could match up our CG, fairly seamlessly with the face. And sort of lastly in this sequence, we built a CG set of forceps so we could do the scene where he's, disgustingly kind of probing in her nose. Let's see. This is a scene from Boardwalk with kind of a similar effect where we created a model that let us match his performance and then map it onto the digital prosthetic. This is young adult. In this, we first, in this, we created his atrophied leg on Patton Oswalt by first warping the original footage and then using 3ds Max to add textures to it. This is Pride and Prejudice and Zombies. In these, we built several head models with multiple layers of skin and muscles, and we tracked the actors' heads and rendered multiple passes to let the artists kind of pick and choose and design which parts of the zombies to see. We do a lot of simulations. In our projects, we use a lot of thinking particles, particle flow, and FumeFX. This is a scene from Boardwalk Empire. And in this, we first built a library of CG cows, then used a particle system to distribute them in their CG pens. And sort of lastly, we again went to FumeFX to generate dust and atmosphere throughout the matte painting. This is a scene from Extremely Loud and Incredibly Close that has a FumeFX simulation for the smoke. This is a scene from season 2 of Mr. Robot where we use thinking particles to destroy the building and FumeFX for the cloud plume. Marco Polo here, I think we used a little bit of everything in these shots. We used the Houdini Ocean Toolkit for Max to create the ocean surface. We added additional rain with particle flow. And sort of lastly, we used real flow to create the splash elements. And this is the same scene kind of from a top-down view using all of the same elements. Another Marco Polo shot. Here we built a library of birds that were on fire and used particle flow to create a flocking system of them kind of spreading out over the landscape. This is a scene from the Fifth Estate using particle flow for this kind of rain of burning embers. This is a scene from vinyl. We used a plugin called Ozone that let us build the volumetric clouds in the sky outside the plane window. Another shot from True Detective, where we used thinking particles to direct the birds in a spiral pattern. This is another shot from True Detective where we used FumeFX to build this cosmic vortex that he kind of sees towards the end of the series. And that is some of the 3ds Max from Phosphene. And thank you.
From Thinkbox Software, please welcome Director of Worldwide Sales, Thomas Phariss.
Thank you, everyone. I got to say, I feel a little bit less stressed than all of the studios that had to present because half the area is already cleared out. So everybody was joking before. How about Kim Lee, everybody? I'm the last one that gets to say this, but thank you, Kim. Not only did he pull together this event tonight, but he also manages the user group for 3D Studio Max in New York, as a lot of you know. And he is a wonderful artist, and that's his day job. So between all that, he managed to pull this together, so hats off to you, good sir. Of course, thanks to AMD, the platinum sponsor, or what do we call him? Whatever the highest level. The skyscraper. Couldn't have happened without you, and most importantly, thank you to all of you, because if there wasn't an audience to watch all this, more than likely, we wouldn't be here doing this right now. So, but that's me, and that sales
basically means I'm the guy that most of you don't want to talk to, but I am giving away free software. So, but tonight we'll be showing you some of the stuff. We have Krakatoa, which is the most known application. You saw our demo reel. It's used in pretty much every major feature film, especially the superhero movies. You saw some from our friends over at FuseFX in our demo reel, along with some other studios. And we'll, let's see. We have Krakatoa going, huh? Oh, that was all Max, yeah. Sorry, all the facilities in New York, everything that was in that demo reel that was used, that's all 3D Studio Max. Thanks, Kim, for reminding me. Deadline is our most known application. If you guys need to go beyond Backburner inside 3D Studio Max, Deadline's a good way to do it. So if you're creating that demo reel and you need to pull in a 2D app for a couple other systems inside your house or in a studio or whatever the size, Deadline brings it all together. A nice streamlined pipe flow. It supports more applications out of the box. If you're at this event, you will get to see or use any of the plugins that we create for 3D Studio Max for 90 days. All you gotta do is send me an email and say I was at Xpand, I'd like to try out Krakatoa, Frost, XMesh, or Stoke, and you got it. And we're giving away some pretty cool stuff. We have the Krakatoa Standard Bundle, which is good for a workstation and 2 render licenses, so if you have a couple systems, you can use it. And of course, there's Deadline. If any of you students are trying to pull together a demo reel, Deadline's license-free mode is a great way to do that. Gives you 2 free licenses, never any obligation to buy more. But if you have a couple systems sitting around the house that you need to offload your rendering from Max to, so you can pull together that concept to land your first big job, you can use the license-free mode within Deadline to make all that happen. And that's basically it. So I'm short and sweet, guys. Now I think Kim is going to come up and we're going to do a raffle.
Check, check, check. Hey, so I just wanted to take like 3 minutes just to cover a couple of things. So a lot of you guys mentioned when you guys registered, your primary package was something that wasn't Max, which is fine, which is exactly what we wanted to do. We wanted to show you guys what is happening with that tool and the companies that use it. Some of you may be like, well, that's kind of cool, but you know, I can't afford another package of software, or it's going to be a pain in the ass. If you could bring up that first white slide. Autodesk gives educational licenses out for free. So if you're a student and you want to learn any of their software, you can go to their website. I just did a screen grab yesterday and sign in, make an account, and download their software for free and use it for 3 years. So that's a very low hurdle to entry, I'd say. No lower than free, right? So anyway, I just want to let you know about that. Also, if you guys are interested in expanding your repertoire, God, that sounds so corny coming from me. If you actually are interested and you want to, learn some more things, okay, you can get the software, that's great. Want to let you know about the user group that they were talking about before that we run. If you go to the next one. One of the grays, yeah. So there's a website, nyc3d.org, that you can visit. We actually we were doing more meetings before. We're doing them once a quarter now, but they're free. You just come down, get on the mailing list, go to the website, get on the mailing list. We'll let you know when we're going to be getting together. And we do a little bit more in-depth looks at different projects. Then today's very cursory. We had to get through 8 amazing studios and kind of cram all their amazing work into 2.5 hours, which doesn't let you really get deep into like how they did a project. So we do that at the user group. So definitely check that out and sign up. Also, be aware, I was told that you guys were giving these on the way in. One of our sponsors is Pluralsight, which used to be Digital Tutors, very confusing, but it's Pluralsight now. You should check out their site. It's pretty cool. Let's see where you have to jump to the non-gray one. There we go. So check out their website. There's, you have a month of free access to it, so just go play around. Obviously, you don't have to just look at Mac's tutorials if you want. We will be raffling off right now, in a matter of moments, a 1-year free subscription to them. So anyway, I wanted to thank you guys all for coming. I hope you guys saw some interesting work that you liked, that inspired you. And feel free to, the reason we're having the reception is so you can ask questions to the studios, play with some of the toys, and network. It's all about that. So thank you so much for coming, and look forward to seeing you outside after we do this raffle.